InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcasts, looking at cannabis news, stocks to watch, as well as insights from thought leaders and experts. Today we're looking at announcements from the Green Organic Dutchman Holdings Limited, trading on the TSX as TGOD and the OTC as TGOD-F, as well as Aurora Cannabis Incorporated, trading on the TSX and New York Stock Exchange as ACB, as well as a look at this year's 420 sales and figures, and my interview with Duma Wenshu, co-founder and CEO of Province Brands, where we discuss how this company has evolved over the past 3 years and what we can expect to see this October regarding the Canadian beverages and consumables market. Starting with the Green Organic Dutchman Holdings Limited, who announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, Hem Poland, has received organic certification from Eko-Gwarancja, or the EKOGWARNCAGA, Petra. This organic certification is provided by the Polish Center of Accreditation, an authority from the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. Hemp Poland's facilities, production process, and product offerings are now certified organic. TGOD's extraction and formulation of premium high-grade quality hemp oils from its certified organic raw materials within Poland sets the foundation for novel and proprietary products to be offered throughout Europe and the global markets with the official PLEKO-01 EU certificates. TGOD's newly certified facility expands its global reach for certified organic production. The EKOGWARNCAGA PTRE is the largest certification body supported by the Polish Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, certifying operators whose goods are being produced in accordance with council regulations. Next, looking at Aurora Cannabis and N-Wave Corporation, who trades on the TSX Venture as ENW and the OTC as NWVCF, who announced today that the companies have entered into a royalty-bearing commercial license agreement, providing Aurora with the exclusive rights to N-Wave's patented radiant energy vacuum driving technology for the production of cannabis materials in the European Union, excluding Portugal. Aurora has also secured exclusive license options for both Australia and South America, excluding Peru, exercisable pursuant to minimum REV trademark machine purchase order requirements. Additionally, Aurora has signed a non-exclusive sub-license to use the REV trademark technology in Canada. The companies furthermore announced that Aurora has placed a purchase order for 2 of N-Wave's 120 kilowatt REV trademark dehydration systems for its Aurora Sky and Aurora Sun facilities in Canada, as well as the intention to purchase a third 120 kilowatt REV trademark dehydration system for its Aurora Nordic facility in Denmark within 60 days. The REV trademark dehydration systems will be used to increase throughput of material for extraction and use in derivative cannabis products. Aurora has also acquired a 10 kilowatt pilot scale REV trademark machine for product development, protocol development, and R&D. Next, this year marked the first legal year of Canada's 420, as well as for many of the U.S. states, and many companies marked record sales. 420 brought in over $80 million in sales this year in the U.S., with the largest grossing sales day of the year so far. For Thursday to Saturday, so 4/18 to 4/20, the 3-day sales were $182 million US, whereas in 2018 it was $132 million, marking a 38% growth. On 4/20, flower accounted for 45.3% of sales, but was only a 2% increase in the sales share compared to 2019 averages, with cartridges and pens accounting for 39%, concentrates at 12%, and edibles at 10%. The average total nationally in the US was $108.06 for the average ticket holder. I was able to attend the 420 event in Vancouver, BC, where over 60,000 people attended this cannabis activist event, demanding less government regulations and more cannabis freedom, as well as consideration for psilocybin or magic mushrooms, which actually may be on the docket in some U.S. states next election. Vancouver's first April 20th protest was held in 1995 at Victory Square Park at Hastings and Cambie, and was organized by Dana Rozic and Cindy Lasso, who worked at Mark Henry's revolutionary Hemp BC shop. In 1997, the 420 protest was moved to the Art Gallery grounds downtown, and over 1,000 people attended. The event grew year by year and led many years of local activist David Molino Levine, who hosted cannabis raffles and a big joint giveaway at 420. Malmo Levine encouraged people to sell and share cannabis at 420 and created a safe space for dealers and buyers. People started bringing bags of joints and infused cookies to sell, and by 2007, there were 7,000 people at 420, packing the front of the Art Gallery. This event had grown to include a day-long live music, public speakers, and many booths openly selling cannabis products. Other 420 events had become established in cities across Canada, but the event continued to grow exponentially in size and scope. By 2014, the crowds were surpassing 30,000 people, filling the whole art gallery and surrounding area, forcing the shutdown of Hornby, Howe, Robson, and Georgia Street. After consultation with city officials, the 420 organizer committee decided to move the protest to Sunset Beach in 2016. This larger venue allowed for an increased public safety, less disruption, and a better event for everyone. From these humble beginnings, 420 has grown to Vancouver's biggest and most popular public event. Now for our interview with Duma Wenshu, CEO of Province Brands. If you'd like to look at some of Province's patented hemp beer production, which is quite amazing to watch, you can click on a YouTube link below, as well as for more information on Province, there is another link below to find. Here with Duma Wenshu, who's co-founder and CEO of Province Brands. So Duma, you're at ArcView. Since we last talked, I know a lot's changed for you guys. Can you maybe tell me where Province is now that it wasn't before?
A lot has changed since our last time, and thank you for having me on. Right now, we're really focused on building out the construction, building out the facility. We're also closing a lot of co-packing deals with other companies, which is really interesting. The facility we're building is 123,000 square feet, located in Grimsby, Ontario. It's about 45 minutes outside of Toronto, about 45 minutes from the U.S. border. And we'll be capable of producing 175,000 hectoliters per year of beer, which would put us basically in the top 10% of breweries in Canada by size. But what makes it unique is it's going to be one of the only facilities in the world that can brew a beer and is licensed to work with marijuana. And what makes it even more unique is that it is the only brewery in the world that can actually brew a beer from marijuana. Right? That is our unique, our sort of big unique attribute of Province is that we've developed a technology to actually brew beer from the cannabis plant. And as people have been hearing about this, we've been approached by beer companies, some very big ones, Lost Craft Beer recently we closed, and several others, who want to put a beer out into the marijuana market, but they don't have a license on their brewery, and it would be very complicated for them to get a license on their brewery to brew beer for marijuana consumers there. We have a facility that's suitable for that. We've also been contacted by licensed producers who want to expand their brand into edibles and beverages and make sure that consumers can see their brand on a beverage, so we can make beer for them. Now, some of these clients are having us actually brew our own proprietary technology to brew a beer from the cannabis plant. Others are brewing the beer from barley and infusing it with marijuana. We can do either at the facility. So that's one of the major things that's changed. We've been signing, as I mentioned, 9 of these. We're working on our 10th right now. And on the other hand, we are growing the team, raising capital, and getting a lot closer to our public listing.
I think that's a fantastic place to be for your guys' company's story, because I know that in our first couple of interviews, your guys' story is very interesting in that, going to different brewmasters, right, going to all these people and getting essentially told and dismissed that this isn't going to work. And now, of course, there's proof of concept, and now there's this huge, I've seen, how many articles do you need to see a week about how the edibles and beverage cannabis market is going to be the biggest thing right now?
It is the biggest
thing. Now everyone's on board, right? Now you're actually getting the contact, like the full circle event of that. It's very fantastic to hear.
What's interesting is just that, when we started this, it was in September of 2016, and we go around to meetings and people say, what are you doing? Beverages aren't legal in Canada, and they may never be legal in Canada, and well, they turned out to be wrong, those people. And also when we started this, we met with a lot of brewers, as you mentioned, who said that we would never be able to brew a beer from the cannabis plant, because to brew a beer you need sugars, fermentable sugars. There are no sugars in the plant. I mean, a little bit in the roots, but not enough to brew with. There's no carbohydrates that you can mash to sugar, so how do you do it? And we've figured out that process to basically extract not just sugars, but phytocannabinoids from the plant, and to make this amazing beer that's cannabis, hops, water, yeast. That's it. Just the same simple 4 ingredients. And that all seemed impossible. And it's been a really hard almost 3 years. I mean, it's been the hardest for my life. I've got some gray hairs now that I did not have when this started. Why it's worth it is because somehow, whether it's because of us shooting off our mouth or just the way the industry's evolved, everybody has realized that beverages are going to be the future in cannabis, and particularly adult beverage style things like beers and wines. And we have more than a 2-year head start on all these folks. We have valuable intellectual property, pending patents that we've applied for. We have know-how, we have technology, and we have a great tasting product where others are just beginning to find a location and construct their facility.
Exactly. So I'd like to go into a little bit about your guys' facility that does have that basically double license. how did you approach that, or how did you get to that stage? And also, how much of a difficulty is it going to be for the people who are 2 years behind to get into that stage with acquiring that license and proving that you're capable of dealing with both THC and alcohol in the same environment?
But we may not do that. So I think when we last spoke, that was the plan. But there were proposed regulations that came out in December. They have not been made into law, but if they are made into law, they would not allow us to produce our alcohol beverage and our marijuana beverage in the same facility. Now, we've already received the alcohol licensure, but that doesn't mean we have to take advantage of it, right? And we could just keep that license active or not really renew it and not really worry about it. And we can produce the alcohol beverage somewhere else. And so we're right now looking for partners to produce our alcohol beverage outside. The real money,
especially if you're working with breweries, that
yeah,
translates
exactly.
over
It's
pretty easily for you.
It's no problem for us to produce the alcohol beverage outside of our own building. The real challenge, of course, is the marijuana beverage and actually the process we've developed to brew a beer from marijuana. And that, of course, is an alcohol-free beer. And so that we will be doing in our own facility. It is, as I mentioned before, it's 123,000 square feet. It is a mess right now with construction and equipment arriving every day and just gearing up to be ready to produce our beer, when beverages are allowed in Canada. It looks like October is going to be the first day that marijuana beverages will be legal. Of course, the question is, will you be able to buy them in October or November? And it's unclear. I mean, they may require a permissions or an approvals process in Canada where you'd have to submit the beverage for some kind of an approval or testing before it can go on the market, which could delay from October, maybe 30, 60, 90 days until we actually see these products in the market. But it's happening really soon, and that's what matters. So the facility is amazing. It is one of a kind in the world. It enables us not just to brew a beer. I mean, there's lots of breweries in the world, but what's unique about our facility is the equipment that enables us to convert the cannabis plant into sugars and at the same time to maintain all the phytocannabinoids. And that's really hard. I mean, we use water, of course, and like, how do you avoid washing those phytocannabinoids out with your wastewater, right? How do you avoid oxidizing them so that they no longer give you the appropriate type of high? There's so many problems and issues that we had to solve to figure out this process. So, sure, the facility gives us a head start because it's getting close to being complete, and most of the others aren't even close to that.
But the technology is
But the
more
technology
essential.
is more, right. I think of province as having like a bunch of moats around each other. It's like, if you imagine if it's a castle, I'm talking of moats, and you're flying over it from the sky like a bird, and you just see all these moats. It looks like a bullseye, right? So the first moat is that, in fact, we've applied for patents around this intellectual property, and we hope they'll be granted. And if they are, that's a pretty good moat. But let's say someone doesn't care about our patents; they're really brazen. Well, in that case, they would need to figure out how to do what we do, right? And to brew a beer from cannabis, and we took almost 3 years figuring it out, and there's still elements that we're still putting the final touches on. It's a really complicated thing to do. We have 10 scientists on our team, 3 with PhDs. Collectively, they have received 57 publications in peer-reviewed journals and 99 patents. So, amazing group of people that have been working on this, day in, day out over the past 3 years. And so they have to figure that out. Second, they'd have to spend a lot of money. We're going to be putting about $100 million worth of equipment into this facility. A lot of it's already arrived. There's a lot we still need to buy, and we're, of course, raising money always to buy this equipment. And so that's a barrier to entry. That's another moat. And then the last moat, which is sort of weird, is just the time, right? I mean, some of the pieces of equipment we've ordered a while ago have a lead time of 12 to 18 months. So even if someone figured all that out, and then they're ready to place an order and did all the engineering, you're looking at another 12 to 18 months so the machinery even shows up at their door. So we have a really nice lead over anyone else.
And then there's also the first to market advantages that
Yeah,
you guys
exactly.
receive. The first brand there becomes the brand people remember.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, it's weird how you think about it. Now they say you have like acquired taste for certain things. Like, do you like olives?
Yeah.
Did you like them the first time you tried them?
Yeah. I can understand that. For me, wine and whiskey are I understand that very easily.
Yeah, right?
Acquired taste.
Yeah.
You show someone a $100 bottle of scotch, they've never had it before.
Right.
It's horrible to them.
Yeah. It's like,
But if you acclimatize that
Yeah.
taste buds, you learn how to taste that, it's suddenly the best thing in the world.
Now, I don't think our beverage is an acquired taste. I think anyone who drinks it loves it. But just this concept of first mover advantage, like, even if someone didn't like it, like someone hates beer, but just being one of the first beverages on the market, they will eventually learn to love our beverage.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, you will set the standard for what the taste is.
Right. Yeah, it's so crazy.
So getting into those, basically the regulations that are coming out surrounding the beverage and consumables market, not a lot of information still clarified or guaranteed. And obviously, I assume you're paying as much attention to this, and probably more than I am, because it very much affects you directly. So what do you see as far as what you've heard and what you're seeing surrounding this issue right now? Coming October, what's the most likely scenario, and how do you find most companies and yourself will be able to deal with that or get a product to market, or how that rolls out?
Being in this industry is really insane, especially being in the beverage space with no regulation. So it's almost like we're like setting sail, but we don't know our destination yet. And we still are building the ship while we're going, like it's really crazy. And you better hope there's not high seas. But these proposed regulations, a lot of them just don't make any sense. And so there's going to be, we hope that some of the stupid ones don't go into law.
Could you maybe elaborate on some of the ones you think are probably damaging to the industry and aren't useful?
I mean, one of them that really makes absolutely no sense and may not be damaging to the industry per se, because I think it's probably there to protect the industry, but is damaging to consumers and the health of children, is this regulation that they don't want marijuana beverages to have elements in common with alcohol. Think about that for a minute. I mean, as a parent, you leave the house, you got a 6-pack of beer in the fridge. Your kids aren't going to drink it. Like they don't drink beer. They know what it is. But you leave the house and you have a bunch of grape sodas.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing? A bunch of grape sodas in the fridge, and you say don't drink that. You come home, one might be missing, right? We've had millennia to condition children to know that certain types of beverages, certain brands, certain types of bottle shapes, those are for adults, right? Yep. And by saying that we want cannabis beverages not to look and feel like those, sure, you're protecting the industry because the industry doesn't want, Budweiser and these big brands, Heineken, whatever, on the shelf next to them, but you're endangering children, right? Because you're sort of forcing the beverage makers to make things that are sugary and sweet and that are more likely to appeal to children, no matter how you package it, right? Eventually, the beverage comes out of the package, and the kids are going to see it, and they're going to smell it, and they're going to know what it tastes like, and they're going to want to drink it. That's just an example where clearly not very well thought out, because they're putting the interest of the industry over the interest of the public health. Right? It makes no sense. I don't think things like that will last. But we're ready to give them a run for their money and to challenge them on things like that. I mean, I'm a fighter. My personality is to put me in the corner, and I'll fight my way out. And we don't think we have any issues. Honestly, we think our product is fully compliant with the regulations. But if, for example, they would interpret those regulations and say you can't launch a product that you call a beer, we'd say, well, why not? What about our beer's not patterned after alcohol beer. I mean, that would be crazy. Our beer's patterned after non-alcohol beer, right? I mean, that's a type of beer. And what about a root beer? What about a ginger beer? Come on. So
there's always an angle to use.
There's an angle, and it's just it's a foolish sort of regulation. So we'll see how they all come out. I mean, some of them are really good and really smart. Some of them are silly. Another one I think is silly is this idea that they don't want, and this is not good for my company, honestly, to say this, but I care about the consumers. They don't want companies that are already making actual adult beverages making marijuana beverages, right? Which doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it's super hard to make a food product, and you can get botulism, you can get all kind of terrible, E. coli. I mean, like all kind of outbreaks. Like, there's so much that goes into quality control for food. Why wouldn't you let companies that have already mastered that and have had a track record of never having foodborne illness in their beverage make beverages for consumers? Instead, they're saying, oh, let's have these guys who are like basically like either farmers or stock promoters or a mix of both make food products that are going to hopefully not have foodborne illness. It's irrelevant. It makes no sense.
Well, and also the industry is still too young to have people who can properly regulate that space the same way the food industry is already regulated.
Yeah.
Those people are in place. That industry has that infrastructure. You can't hire even a new person who's a cannabis expert
Right.
and
It would take time. This is silly stuff.
and is also now a food expert. Isn't going to work out, right?
Look, it's extremely important to make very stringent and intelligent regulations for this new industry, because if they don't make the right regulations, people could get hurt, bad products could come out. But I think in some cases, the Health Canada is going a little too far, and I think it's going to be a balance. They'll get pushed back over time, and some of these things that just are really crazy and excessive will fall away because they defy logical sense. And in the end, rational sense always wins out. Sometimes it just takes a while to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there needs to be some regulations, again, quality control, elements like that, having the labels properly defined, proof of product, and transparency are
Potency
very
is
essential.
really important.
Potency,
People need to know what they're getting, what they're consuming.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that element. I think the danger aspect of cannabis is consistently, though, overhyped everywhere. Where there's this, even the fear of greening out.
What's greening out?
Just getting too high, basically.
Oh, that's awesome. I love getting too high.
Well, that's that. Yeah, I've heard it before used in a negative way of people who have eaten an edible who have never eaten an edible before. And then for the rest of the day, they green out. And I don't know, as someone who's been too high before, it's not a terrifying experience that kills you. And even if you do get scared, usually you fall asleep.
Yeah, usually you fall asleep. No, I'm totally on board with that. When I say dangerous, I just mean I don't believe that cannabis represents sort of substantial health danger to most people, right? There's this CHS
well, it should be treated
thing
like anything. I mean, Red Bull's as dangerous as
cannabis.
Coffee, sugar, right?
Yeah.
Like there's anything. We have those products. They have a basic warning and a basic amount you should take, but that's as far as...
I totally agree with that. But at the same time, when I said dangerous, I wasn't really speaking in that instance about human health. I was more speaking about to the success of the industry. Because in fact, if someone buys an edible and it's not well regulated, and they all, let's say you go to the shelf and there's 20 beverages on the shelf, and some of them have like 2-3 milligrams and some of them have 200, and you don't really know, and there's no regulations about putting what the milligrams are, that kind of thing. Someone's going to take the 200 milligram beverage, drink the whole thing, and have a bad time, and then put a blog post on it or put it in the New York Times, which has happened before, and then the industry is going to suffer because people are generally afraid to try new things. Yeah. And if you get a bunch of people saying that it's not good, they won't try it. And so, lack of regulations, even though people pretend they people hate regulations, really, but lack of regulations is dangerous for the industry because this is new. It's psychoactive. It messes with your brain, and you get a couple of those, it could spell the end of our business. It's a new industry.
I do agree with that. The Yelp review factor of the industry is just as important as anything else, right? If you get 5 consumer reviews that say this is a nightmare,
right,
your company's over.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And it's even, there was the one, I forget her name, but this New York Times journalist who came to Colorado and tried an edible and ate the whole chocolate bar, which you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, probably 200 milligrams, something like that.
Then she was in the hotel room all night, curled up in a ball, and wrote a really bad piece about how edibles will never take off. And you get enough of those pieces in well-respected journals, and edibles and beverages may not take off.
Yeah, well, I hope that's not the case. And I mean, I think it's an inevitability at this point.
Right.
The beverage market.
This train has left the station.
Yeah, there's no way to just go back and throw all this back in the box. It's out there. Speaking of your products very specifically, being as you make the THC beer, can you talk a little bit about what your plans are with that? So, for instance, a product that might come to market, is there going to be, how would that be marketed and differentiated from 5 beers on your, I think of, if I go to a brewery, they'll have an IPA, they'll have a pale ale, they'll have those 5 or 6 different types of beer. For a cannabis beer, is it going to be arranged by the cannabis component of it? So it's sativa and indica and different potencies of THC and CBD in them? I
mean, we are entering an entirely new world when it comes to psychoactive substances and psychoactive beverages. When you think of alcohol, you only have one type of high, which is the ethanol high. It's drunk, get drunk. With cannabis, there's so many different types of sensations. And with beer in particular, there's so many different types of styles, right? So at the very base level, what we'll see at the very early years when our products hit the market is you could have a sativa that's a stout. You could have an indica that's a stout or a pilsner or a IPA. We could do any different style of beer mixed with any different style of psychoactive experience and see what kind of goes the best. And so that's something we'll play with. That's easy, but that's like 0.0, right? What we're heading towards is a future where cannabis brands like ours will develop iconic sensations. And what I mean by iconic, well, think about something like put a bottle of Patron at the other end of a football field. You can't tell if it's full or empty. You can't read the label, but just that shape of the bottle, you know that's Patron because it's iconic, right? You take the letter O in white in cursive on a red background. You don't see the rest of the word. You know that's Coca-Cola because it's iconic, right? You see a glass of some like green liquid, bright green, looks like highlighter fluid. You know that's Midori because it's like an iconic color. You do a blind taste test and you can taste Coca-Cola, right? It has an iconic flavor. So those are the elements that brands have had to play with up until this time, which are sort of flavor, color, branding, those sort of things. With cannabis, we add a new element, which is sensation. And there will be, for province brands for sure, and I believe for many other brands as well, these kind of iconic sensations that when you try that beverage, you could do it blindfolded. They could somehow figure out a way to strip away the taste, and the high that it gives you will be recognizable. It'll always be that province brand's high. So that's what a lot of our research and development is going into, is that custom sort of signature high that when you try it, you're like, wow, this is a province product. And it doesn't matter which one you try, right? So it's interesting. We can do, with some of our products, we can do infinite number of combinations. Like a Pilsner that's a hybrid, a Pilsner that's a CBD, a Pilsner that's a stout. You can do a million combinations. It's like factorial. But with other types of our products, it doesn't matter whether it's a Pilsner, a stout, a lager, whatever it is. Yeah. You'll know from the way it makes you feel that it's the province high. Yeah. So you can
That's interesting. So I know you guys are focusing on fast delivery, so it's going to hit you at the same pace as alcohol. That's part of the brand you guys have created. And have you guys sort of reached that point as well of a cutoff time or like a latency effect to take some of the THC out of your system?
I wouldn't say that we have that, and that we are talking about sort of two different technologies of province. Yeah. So the one is we call it an accelerant, which now all of our beers will hit in 10 minutes or less, guaranteed, as quick as alcohol. So that is nailed. I should mention that is actually a license, so it's not, in fact, our technology that we developed. But we are, maybe we'll make our own someday. But the decelerating technology is not ready yet, but we're making huge strides on it. And so initially our products will have a bit of a longer duration of effect, but hopefully by mid-2020, if everything comes out, we'll launch a version that leaves your system very quickly. And then that's technology, this decelerant technology that we can license to others. We're making any kind of edible beverage, you name it. So
perfect. So I guess since you're at this ArcView conference as well, what's the big aim or goal for here and maybe for the next couple years or couple months leading up to October for you guys as a company? What's the big
we
plan?
love ArcView. We've been to these events. I've been going to ArcView since 2013, if you can believe it. I'm a big supporter. It's a great place to meet sort of those who are really on the cutting edge of the industry, the new companies that are exploding onto the scene. For us, we're here obviously raising capital. We're kind of always raising capital. I don't know if you've seen what we're doing, but we need so much equipment. It is insane. We're looking at about $100 million worth of capital expenditure on equipment alone in the first 3 years. We don't spend all that right away, but Jesus, it's a lot. So we're doing a Series B right now, which is a fundraise, and the ArcView visit is primarily looking for folks who might be interested in participating in that, and then meet new and interesting companies that there might be some opportunity to collaborate on. And then in terms of what do the next couple months look like until October, it's a lot of hard hats and steel-toe shoes, walking around in a construction site, getting everything ready, and also forging partnerships so that when we are able to make our own beer in our own facility, it's not just ours, it's these co-packing agreements so that we can just completely fill the capacity of the brewing system with beer, whether it's ours or someone else's.
Seems like the right goal and the way to go.
It's going to be a busy couple of months.
It's been fantastic to keep track of your guys' company story, just because I've found that it's very inspiring and good for the industry to see that progression in that way and see a company doing something that was betting against the odds at certain points that's now saw the writing on the wall for the future and is benefiting from that.
But it's really hard. This is my. I've never.
Well, hopefully at some point it'll become easier. Once there's maybe November or something and beverages are hitting
all
the
we
market.
need is some revenue. Please let us have revenue because it tastes so great, and if people can try it, and when we raise capital, honestly, when investors come out and they try the beer, like they always invest. It's not even maybe at that point, but we need to get it into the hands of consumers because not everyone can try the beer. And if you start seeing some positive sales figures, that changes everything. But this is relying on Health Canada and them getting these regulations out there, moving quickly, and we're doing everything we can to encourage them. We're trying to develop some relationships in Health Canada, help them understand how beverages should be regulated and do everything. But I just can't wait to start selling, and we're getting close. We've been 3 years on this game. It'll be a little more than 3 years by the time our first sale goes, but that's a long time to go without revenue.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I'm like I said, hopefully you guys get there soon enough, and the regulations don't drag too far. Perfect. Well, thank you, man.
Of course. Thanks a lot. I hope that was okay.
And that was perfect.
Once again, that was Duma Wenshu of Province Brands. He is the co-founder and CEO. Again, I highly recommend clicking the link attached to the article part of this podcast, both for their YouTube, which shows the production capabilities of the actual Province Brands, and also their Province Brands website, which shows some of their news and hopefully some of the products that will be coming to market this October or later in the year.
That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.